Tonight, the Trump administration's PR crisis on the Iran agreement is intensifying. This week, as aspects of the deal leaked, J.D. Vance, the vice president, made the rounds on TV to blame Gulf allies for the botched rollout and downplaying concerns by accusing critics of spreading misinformation.
What really bothers me and frustrates me and is unexpected when the American media literally picks up talking points and propaganda from the RAGC that has no support in the text of the agreement that we've actually negotiated and no basis in reality.
So don't take my word for it, because we've been covering this all week, but here's Eric Erickson today. When I pointed out things in this deal the other day, several administration defenders insisted that those things would never be in the deal. Now they're in the deal, and the same people insist it's a great deal. Stephen, why did they spend days denying that there would be a $300 billion fund, denying that there would be sanctions relief, and those things are in the deal?
Well, I don't have a good explanation for that. I know that Trump wanted to get this over with. I do think there was I know we're going to talk about this a little later. I think he was concerned about the impact this is having on the U.S. economy, and he wants to get it turned around as quickly as possible. So he wanted to bring this to an end with the provision. As I understand it, I haven't read all that, but the most important provision of this is they will not gain a nuclear arsenal, and that seems to me to be a pretty important objective.
But there are no mechanisms stated here in terms of intrusive inspections, 24/7 inspections. I mean, I assume that that's something that will come and will be discussed during the 60-day period. But frankly, I mean, I think that what it looks like to me is that the Iranians have, they did a flanking operation. They found the soft underbelly of the U.S. military. They controlled the Straits of Hormuz, even though they're a weaker power. And President Trump was simply unwilling, not incapable, but unwilling to spend more resources, possibly American lives, more money.
You think he should have?
I think that having gone down that road of starting a war to achieve the three goals that he stated, I mean, my reading, it was quite consistent from the beginning. He said missiles, it was enrichment, missiles, and proxies. And that is something, by the way, I mean, I did bring the text of those three things were exactly the three items that President Trump stated in the executive order he made when he came back in office and reinstated the maximum pressure. So he's been focused on that. So I think that, yes, I mean, I think they were close to like the 20-yard line. And to achieve those war aims, I think that he could have gone further. And
double down, basically.
Yeah, he could have gone further, but he decided not to.
So, in addition to denying some of the monetary components of this deal, there was a lot of sort of hemming and hawing about what the deal was going to say about the enriched uranium. And I just want to play, again, there's a lot of before the deal and after the deal. Here is what they used to say about, the nuclear material and enriched uranium being a red line, and what President Trump is saying today.
You want the enriched uranium before you can end this.
And we want no enrichment, but we also want the enriched uranium.
One of your red lines is they have to renounce having their nuclear ambition. Do we have to get back the highly enriched uranium? Is that a red line for a deal?
Yes.
Right.
Do you really feel in your heart of hearts that you can stop Iran from enriching uranium and never build a bomb?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
They're going to stop. And they told me, the Iranians told me, and I deal with them, and they said that we're going to get the dust. We've been pretty tough on that. It is a little hard, though, when you say that somebody wants it, other people have it, other adjoining states have it, and you're not letting them have it for purposes of electricity and things like that. It's always a little tough. You have to use a little common sense.
Okay, so just so you're aware of what's actually in this MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, they're not going to get the dust. They are going to dilute the dust. That's what it says. Now, you can give them credit for getting Iran to sign on to something that says, here's what we're going to do with the nuclear material that you have already. But it doesn't say you're going to let us in to retrieve it and take it out of the country. And in fact, on the question of just are they able to enrich, remember he told Caitlin, we want no enrichment. The deal says we'll talk about enrichment. And then he said there in that quote, maybe they might need to enrich for other purposes. That is, I think, something that for many conservatives has been their red line on Iran.
Can I just make a comment about this enrichment? I was following very closely the 2015. There were the JCPOA made one, I think, concession which they shouldn't have done to the Iranians, which was that they included in the language the idea, the demand by the Iranians that we have a right to enrichment on Iranian soil.
Right.
Actually, under NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, no country has a right to enrichment. The NPT gives countries a right to nuclear material, which they can use for civilian purposes. But it doesn't give anyone a right.
So did you read this the way I did, which is to say that we are conceding as the United States that we're going to have a conversation about that.
That's
we're
exactly
not saying no enrichment. We're saying, oh, we can talk about it and maybe you can enrich up until this level. Again, that's exactly right, that this is something that was for a long time a red line. And that is, to me, one of the biggest concessions for Iran because they believe they have a right to enrich. And we're basically saying, you might.
Abby, I think the political whiplash to me here is most astounding. If Donald Trump found the cure to cancer, people at this table would be upset about how he did it. People on the political left would go crazy about how he did it. We got into this war for a strategic purpose, and now the president has gotten us out of the war, gotten it into the war with a really good plan to do so and a very clear win of a big victory on nuclear weapons. And we're sitting around the table complaining about it.
Can you answer the question about nuclear enrichment?
Of course, the details of this are going to come out. The president has a skeleton of a plan put together. There's a framework that's been put together via these 14 points. And I do think that more of the details are going to come out, more of the KPIs are going to come out as we continue to negotiate and go through this. But man, it's whiplash up here because when we were in the war, it was, oh my God, five-alarm fire, Trump got us into this war. Now he's getting us out, and beautifully so, and you're still complaining.
The results don't match the cost of war, and that is honestly going to be a political problem for him as we get closer to the midterms and we look beyond that. The cost of war in this case was Iran not having a nuclear weapon, full stop. The cost of war to people at home are American lives that were lost. Yes, absolutely. And when you go to war, having done it myself several times,
I hear you.
Do. And there is, and that's an unfortunate, I don't want to gloss over that point. That is an unfortunate aspect of combat and going to war against our nation's enemies.
It doesn't feel like the president understands the gravity of that.
I think wait a second. I think as the commander-in-chief of the United States, the president absolutely understands. And I think if you want to compare when this president goes to Dover Air Force Base and did the dignified transfers of those bodies, he wasn't checking his watch like Joe Biden was and falling asleep. So when you talk about, let me finish. When you talk about the gravity of the issue with the president, the commander-in-chief understanding the gravity of American lives lost, that's
I want to get back on topic because I heard and I appreciate the regurgitation of the talking points, but we were talking about nuclear enrichment and them being closer to a nuclear weapon and possessing that uranium and that we're talking about in making these nuclear weapons. And you brought up an amazing point, which, frankly speaking, I'm too far away from to understand. So you taught me something today. What I do understand about the JCPOA, which you said was a different time, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. October 7th did change the framework of the Middle East. However, there were provisions in place. There were checkpoints in place to make sure that enrichment was maintained at a certain level, that they were backing away from that. And all we're simply saying is that that's not in place today.
It will be. I guarantee you. It will
listen, you are trusting the Iranian regime that has not changed by simply saying...
I'm trusting Trump because the one thing he will never allow is for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Biggest problem
so for the next 2.5 years he's president, they will not have a nuclear weapon.
I mean, we're not having... This is Israel, the United States, the Middle East, what you just said, because we actually agree on something, that Iran does not need to have a nuclear weapon. It's a worldwide problem. However, we actually had, and I'm going to just steal from Trey Gowdy, we actually had maximum pressure. We had sanctions on them. Today, they're able to go back and sell oil. They're charging money that we're paying for ships to come through the Straits of Hormuz. Like, it's not only the pain on the American people, which we'll get to, but talking points do a disservice to the fact that we are not meeting the objectives that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio has been quiet, have told the American public.
All right, we have to leave it there. Keon, thank you, as always,
you taught
very
me a whole
much
lot.
for teaching us all a little bit something tonight. Next for us, the president delivers a new defense for the agreement. To avoid another depression, he says, another special guest is going to be with us at the table. We'll be right back.